Hey there, I'm the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Welcome to this episode of
QCC.
That's questions, comments, concerns as far as you're concerned. Yes, this is QCC. In fact, this is a special episode of QCC. I decided to devote an entire episode to all of your questions and comments about acoustic panels. Every time I try to get out, you guys keep bringing me back in. But that's okay. Get a lot of traffic on this channel around my acoustic panel videos. So that's what I'm here for. As usual, I'd like to welcome my good friends in the cheap seats.
Knock, knock.
All right, I'll bite. Who's there?
Absolutely nobody, buddy. This show sucks.
Well, that doesn't explain why he's here.
Can you imagine how boring it would be if I wasn't?
Anyways, let's start with an update. By the way, this microphone here, I've already featured it in a full review. This is the TZ Audio Products. This is the Stellar X2 large capsule dynamic microphone. I'm not being paid to say this, but they sent it over to me. I did a full review, and you know what? It's a really great microphone for the money. Link will be in the description, as well as a couple other links. In fact, anything I discussed today, I will make a dedicated playlist for this episode, QCC number 5. You'll find a couple of videos in there for you to check out. The other things I want to talk about, we're talking about the updates, is one of the benefits of a growing YouTube channel is I do get access to products before they hit the street. That was the case for 2 new products recently, at least at the time of this video. Number 1, Hughes & Kettner, legendary amp manufacturer, has a new amp on the market. That's the Amp-Man. It comes in classic and modern. This is a pedal format, 50 watt, all analog circuitry, but no tubes. It's the spirit of nanotechnology. Great little amplifier, especially on a budget. You can get some pretty raging tones out of that thing. I did a full review on modern and classic, the 2 models of Amp-Man, so that will be in today's playlist. And also from United Plugins, Quick Bass, which is a great plugin if you're looking to shape your bass tone in your mixes, whether you're recording direct, but you know what, you can use it in all applications. In fact, I even tested it on synth bass in a separate little video, so check that out. That will be in playlist QCC number 5. That's all I got for an update. Let's jump into the questions. All right off the top, I just want to address generally a couple of questions that I get, just tons of questions about these 2 topics. Number 1, insulation, or the type of material that I'm using inside of the acoustic panels. Now, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I've talked about it ad nauseum in a couple of different videos. So what I'm going to do actually as well, in addition to the QCC number 5 playlist, I'm going to put the link to the playlist for all of my acoustic panel videos. I have a full acoustic panel Q&A. I talk about all things acoustic panels in addition to this video, but specifically I touched on the safety of the materials. Now I'm going to say right off the bat, if you're not comfortable using a particular material in your acoustic panels, just don't use it. I've done my research and I've talked about it, and I've often said, if you're not comfortable, if you don't feel the material safe, just don't use it. There are alternatives out there. You certainly can look for other acoustic panel videos where people are using different materials. I've even tested other materials in my acoustic panel sound test video, again in the playlist. But I don't want to answer that question anymore. I'm just going to direct people to that video where I do talk about it. If you have any concerns about any materials that in the acoustic panel brew, just don't use it. That's all I'm going to say, and it's the last time I'm actually going to talk about it. The other thing is fabric. I'm just going to answer this because I must get like 20 questions a week from people asking me where I get the fabric for acoustic panels. I think people think there's a special fabric for acoustic panels, and maybe there's some kind of synthetic blend that some manufacturers are using. I don't know, but honestly, for DIY acoustic panels, just go to your local fabric store. I realize people are watching my videos from all over the world, and maybe in some countries, maybe a fabric store is not as easy to find as it is, here in Canada. We seem to have a fabric store in every second corner. Really, it's just a store where people want to make dresses and curtains and things like that. I like upholstery fabric. I find it a bit tougher as long as the fabric is breathable. I've been asked if you can get it at Walmart, if there's a special place where you buy it. Just go to a local fabric store, use Google, just search fabric store, and you walk into one of those stores. If you've never been there before, it's like a wonderland for fabric, and you'll find something great for your acoustic panels. So hopefully that will answer all of your questions. I'm sure I'll get this question numerous times again, but I figured I would touch on it here. Anyways, let's jump into some actual questions and comments. I've got a question here from Dimension with a 5. Please, sir, if I sleep in the place where I put my bass traps, I should cover them with what? Well, I understand a lot of people set up their studios in their bedroom. Now, I'm going to look at it this way. If you have any concerns about the materials you're putting in the panels, regardless of whether you sleep in that room, because last I checked, I bet most of you are spending more time mixing than you are sleeping. I think we're getting a good 6, 7, maybe even 8 hours if we're lucky. But I know many of you guys can sit there for 10 or 12 hours mixing. So whether you're sleeping or mixing in that room, you got to be comfortable with the material that you're putting inside of your panels, whether it's panels, bass traps, regardless. If you don't like Safe and Sound or the mineral wool insulation that I've recommended, you want to go use towels, you want to use something else. Like I said, regardless whether you're sleeping or mixing, you need to be comfortable with the material. Sound doesn't care. So you can wrap it in plastic and turn them into reflectors. You're not going to achieve the goal of good absorption. So what should you wrap your panels in? Wrap it in the fabric like I recommended. And if you have any concerns about the materials, as I said off the top, just don't use it. Got a comment here from Brandon Winters, who writes, for $160, I managed to save $700 by making these myself, and top quality too. Well, you know what? That's the point. I mean, if you got a home studio, I mean, I'm assuming your room is probably not optimal in the first place. So spending a lot of money on acoustic treatment is probably not the right thing to do. That's why I made this video. I learned how to do it just like you guys. I found a couple of videos and I think I just maybe improved the formula a little bit and tested them and sharing my experiences with you. You know what? If you're mixing in your bedroom and you want to improve the acoustics in there, I mean, you're not going to do soundproofing, but you certainly can treat your room with some acoustic panels. And as Mr. Winters writes here, for not a lot of money, you really can improve your space. And that's why I made the video. Larry Tate wrote, better to use Roxul Rockboard 60 or 80, absorbs a lot more of the low end frequencies. Actually, that's a really, really good point. Roxul is also known as Rockwool, I think, depending on what market. I don't know if in Canada and the US it has a different name, but there's Rockboard, there's Comfort Board. Actually, Comfort Board 80 is a material that I've been using in my acoustic panels more recently. The first acoustic panels video I did, the cheap and awesome acoustic panels, where I use Safe and Sound, I still stand by that formula, but I have since improved that formula a little bit, where I'm using Comfort Board 80. It's actually the same mineral, but it's a rigid board. So if you have any concerns about loose fibers and things like that, it's less likely to give off fibers because it is more of a rigid product. It's also denser too, so it performs a little bit better down low. And actually, if you look at my mini panels video, the formula that I'm using for those panels, they may be smaller, but you can adapt them to a 2x4 panel, where I'm using one sheet of the Comfort Board 80, and I actually wrap it in a very thin fabric, kind of the stuff you put on the back of the panel. And then on top of that, I put some of that cheap acoustic foam that really doesn't do the job on its own, but acts as a great filter layer, maybe to keep some more of those fibers inside the panel. And then I wrap the final fabric on the outside. So I swear by Comfort Board 80 now. I still stand by the original panels, but if you want to improve the formula, a little bit more money, a little bit more work, Comfort Board 80, or in this case, as he mentioned, the Rock Board, is a great alternative. And in fact, probably an improvement to Safe and Sound. Clay Stanley writes, would 2 inches thick Roxul work? Roxul, I guess we got perhaps another American here. Now, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, really absorption comes down to density. I mean, you could put a thin piece of paper on the wall and you'll get some kind of reflection or absorption, but 2 inches versus 3 inches versus 4 inches, it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. A 2-inch panel will probably absorb in the high frequencies, maybe the upper mids, maybe touching some of the mid frequencies. But as you start getting down into the mid frequencies and to the lower end, a 2-inch panel is probably not going to do much at all. So really, it comes down to what you're looking to do. I mean, if you're looking to absorb bass frequencies, with bass traps, putting even a 3-inch panel in the corner is not going to really do a lot with the bass frequency. So the thickness of the panel, it's not so much the thickness, it's the density of the material, where it's placed and how it's installed will ultimately determine how well it's going to absorb. So a 2-inch panel will do its job, certainly in the maybe upper mids and high frequencies, but if you got some problems in the middle and down low, unfortunately, that's not going to cut it, literally. Well, I got a couple of comments here that might be a little self-serving, but hey, it's my show. I'll do what I want. Arc Dark 555 wrote, bro, I personally thank you from the bottom of my heart for this clean and informative video. I'll follow every frame of it when I start doing my panels. Arc Dark 555, thank you very much. You're the reason why I do these in the first place. And Rafik Mankarios, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Drum Studio. I know he's a drummer because I checked out his channel, and a good one too. Impeccable and intelligent explanatory video, bud. I would give 100 thumbs up if I could. Cheers from Montreal. Montreal is my hometown. Born in Montreal. Now I live in Toronto. But great to hear from you. Thank you so much for your comments, and go Habs go. And now it's time for the daily affirmation. Palindrome Music sent me a note and wrote, thank you so much for that tutorial. I just made my first panel and it looks amazing. You're amazing. Palindrome Music, if I could say, I think you're amazing. You took the time to do the research. You took the time to watch the video. You took the time to make the effort and to make your own panels. And that was all you. Palindrome Music, I want to tell you, you're amazing. All right, let's get back to the questions. I've got one here from Tommy Ayers. This question was on my sound panel test video. He wrote, for anyone wondering, one of these panels lined on the inside with 7 towels outperforms one panel of rock wool by a lot and is much cheaper. Thrift stores have cheap towels. Would have loved to see you use 4 inches and 6 inches of towels. I've seen other tests similar to this where towels did incredibly well the thicker they were stacked. Well, I actually talk about towels in the video. Like I said, I did that whole video where I tested some different materials or different panels, and then I did throw some towels into the mix because I know a lot of people are using towels as an alternative. Now, to say that they perform better, towels are towels. They're all different densities. And again, depending on the type of frequencies or where you're looking to absorb, they don't all perform the same. Now, they did perform really well. I was actually surprised how well the towels did perform. But I have a couple of concerns about towels. Number one, I'm in a basement here, and if there's any dampness or even a little bit over time, I don't know if those towels can start to smell after a while. But the main reason that I don't use towels is they're flammable. Now, while there are materials in this room that are flammable, the last thing I want to do is line my walls with materials that are, in essence, fuel if there ever was a fire. Rock wool, mineral wool is not flammable. It's rated for safety because they're designed to be put inside walls for construction, and they have to be non-flammable. But something terrible were to happen and there was a fire in the house and you had walls full of 7 inches thick of towels, that is just fuel that's going to turn that into a raging inferno. So I thought about it, and even though they perform well and they are cheaper, but you know what? Safe and Sound is not that expensive. Comfort Board is not that expensive. Maybe you'll spend $100 or $200 if you're creating music. I think the little extra investment is definitely worth it. Oh, it seems we've got a disgruntled commenter. So, Mr. Jew last here. You are last. This relates to the cheap and awesome acoustic panels. I have a technique that I use to fold corners. I've looked at a lot of different videos and I just don't like the way they look. So I came up with a method that I think is more seamless. And I talk about that in that video. But he wrote 1240, I guess is when I talk about corners. 1240 is not the way to do corners. Well, instead of being completely self-serving here, I thought I would leave it to my Lonely Rocker community here to help me out with this guy. I've got Justin Francis wrote, at Lonely Rocker, awesome video. Go Raptors. Well, I am from Toronto. Jew Last is a fraud. Pay no attention to the haters, fam. I'm building mine like you suggest. Thanks for sharing. Thanks a lot, Justice. I guess you are a justice warrior. And Kevlar wrote, extra thanks for the useful tips on wrapping the corners. My corners came out smooth as ass. Well, with a name like Kevlar, I guess smooth is the word of the day, but thank you very much for the assist. And we've now arrived at the last question. Yes, we've got the last question of the day, and this one is from Slavko Makarovsky, who wrote, thanks for your super video and craftsmanship. I really appreciate it. And I only have one question, but only one? Can I make panels much larger in one piece in order to save time to do so many of them? If yes, will they have the same performance at least? That is absolutely an amazing question, and certainly someone thinking, perhaps they can save a little bit of time and effort in making a bigger panel that will occupy more wall space. Now, if you're making panels bigger, now depending on how big you want to make them, there are some construction implications, I would say, to make sure they're strong enough. Not a big deal. But the reason I don't think that's actually a good idea is you should actually watch. I have a video where I talk about where to place your panels. Now, the absorption of the panels is only part of the formula. The other part is placement. They need to be in very specific places. So just making a bigger panel is not going to cover off all of those hot zones or those places where you want your panels to sit, first reflection points and things like that. So you need to calculate where you want to put your panels. And it's really, really simple. And I do talk about it in my placement video. Again, it's in the panels playlist. So maybe a bigger panel will occupy a bigger part of the wall. Really, you need to focus your panels on where they need to be, because sound is just going to go where it goes. And creating good absorption for your room, whether it's your bedroom or a little studio, you're not lining your walls with absorption. You're actually placing acoustic panels in very key places. So no, I wouldn't recommend making bigger panels necessarily, unless you just got a really big room. And really, I think they'd be taller. I don't know if they'd be much wider. So really great question. And hopefully that helps you. Well, we have come to the end of another episode of QCC. I love getting questions from you. You certainly can add them to the comment section of this video. I do go hunting and pecking through all of my videos on my channel to pick out anything interesting that I want to include perhaps in a future episode of QCC. So if you want to have a shot at being in the show, just leave me a comment somewhere. And once again, I'd like to thank my good friends in the cheap seats.
Knock, knock.
All right, I'll play again. Who's there?
Bo.
Bo who?
Boring.
Why do I keep doing this to myself?
You know you love me there, buddy.
Anyways, I want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with me here at QCC. If you are new to this channel, I hope I've earned a subscribe. I've got a ton of content on this channel, a lot of it revolving around this home studio, geared to the home studio enthusiast and the home recording musician, with videos to hopefully help make your home studio life better. I really mean that. So perhaps you just click that subscribe button and come along for the ride. If you really want to support this channel, I'm actually on Patreon, so you can join me over there. And above all else, I hope I'm going to see you again in another video.